In this episode of The Lucy Show, Lucy, once again portrayed with unstoppable chaotic energy by Lucille Ball, finds herself entangled in a situation that begins with a seemingly harmless misunderstanding at the bank but quickly escalates into a full-scale, comedic crisis driven by her overconfidence and refusal to admit that she might not fully understand what is going on. As the episode opens with Lucy noticing a shift in behavior from Mr. Mooney, who appears unusually tense and secretive about a particular matter, and instead of ignoring it, Lucy immediately becomes suspicious, convincing herself that something important is happening behind the scenes, perhaps an opportunity, a hidden promotion, or even a secret operation within the bank that she has somehow been excluded from. And this curiosity quickly turns into determination as she decides that she must uncover the truth. Not just for her own benefit, but because she believes she has a natural talent for handling complicated situations, even though past experience suggests otherwise, and so she begins her investigation in the least subtle way possible, asking indirect questions that are actually very direct, inserting herself into conversations where she clearly does not belong, and attempting to gather information from fragments that she only partially understands, which leads her to construct a completely inaccurate but highly detailed theory about what is happening. And once she believes in that theory, she commits to it fully, shaping all of her actions around the assumption that she is right. And this is where the episode really starts to build momentum, as Lucy begins taking initiative based on false information, stepping into roles she was never assigned, giving instructions to others with misplaced authority, and creating a version of reality that only she seems to recognize, and naturally, this causes confusion among everyone around her. But Lucy interprets that confusion as evidence that she is uncovering something important, which only reinforces her behavior. And as the situation develops, the stakes gradually increase, with more people becoming involved and more moving parts entering the scene, each one adding another layer of complexity that Lucy has to manage. And instead of simplifying anything, she continues to complicate matters further, juggling multiple misunderstandings at once while trying to maintain the illusion that everything is under control. And this leads to a series of classic physical comedy moments where Lucy is forced to move quickly between different locations, hide evidence of her mistakes, and improvise solutions on the spot, often switching between confidence and panic within the same breath. And the humor comes not just from the situations themselves, but from the way Lucy reacts to them, as she constantly shifts her strategy without ever questioning whether the original plan was flawed. And eventually, all of her actions begin to converge toward a central moment, an event or reveal that will determine whether her efforts have led to success or complete disaster. And as that moment approaches, Lucy becomes increasingly frantic, aware on some level that things are slipping out of her control, but unwilling to stop, because stopping would mean admitting that she was wrong. And so she pushes forward with even greater intensity, attempting one last grand maneuver that she believes will tie everything together and prove that she was right all along. But instead, this final attempt triggers the collapse of her entire constructed reality, as all the inconsistencies and hidden truths come to the surface at once, exposing the full extent of her misunderstanding in front of everyone involved. And the result is a perfectly timed explosion of comedic chaos, where every character reacts simultaneously, creating a layered and dynamic scene that highlights the absurdity of the situation. And Lucy, caught in the center of it all, is forced to confront the consequences of her actions in a way that is both humiliating and strangely satisfying. Because while everything has gone wrong, it has also played out in a way that only she could have created. And after the peak of chaos, there is a gradual resolution. As the truth is clarified, misunderstandings are untangled, and the situation begins to stabilize, though not without leaving behind a clear impression of the havoc Lucy has caused. And as things settle, Lucy attempts to regain her composure, offering explanations that are equal parts apology and justification, trying to frame her actions as well-intentioned rather than reckless. And while not everyone is convinced, there is a sense of acceptance that allows the story to move forward, restoring a version of normalcy that feels earned rather than forced. And in the final moments, Lucy returns to her usual demeanor, her confidence seemingly untouched by the experience, as if the entire ordeal has simply reinforced her belief that she is capable of handling anything. And this closing note perfectly captures the essence of her character, because no matter how many times she turns a simple situation into a complicated mess, she never loses that sense of determination. And that is what keeps the show engaging, as each episode offers a new variation on the same core dynamic, blending misunderstanding, ambition, and resilience into a formula that remains consistently entertaining, leaving the audience both amused by what has just happened and curious about what Lucy will do next, because one thing is certain, whatever it is, it definitely will not go smoothly. And even after everything appears to have settled and the immediate chaos has faded into a fragile sense of normalcy, the episode refuses to simply end on a clean resolution, instead choosing to stretch the aftermath just a little further in a way that highlights how Lucy's actions continue to ripple outward in subtle but meaningful ways, because as the bank attempts to return to its usual rhythm, small inconsistencies begin to surface, details that don't quite align with how things were before, and while most people try to ignore them or quietly correct them, Lucy sees these lingering effects as proof that her involvement had some kind of lasting value, convincing herself that despite the obvious confusion she caused, there must have been at least a few improvements hidden within the mess. And this interpretation quickly fuels a new wave of confidence as she starts mentally rewriting the story of what happened, shifting from "I made a mistake" to "I discovered something that others don't fully understand yet," which is a classic Lucy move, and Mary Jane, who has seen this pattern more times than she can count, immediately senses where this is going and attempts to intervene before Lucy can fully transform the narrative into another grand plan. But Lucy is already connecting ideas, pointing out small coincidences, and presenting them as evidence of a larger pattern, speaking with the kind of certainty that makes it difficult for others to interrupt without escalating the situation all over again. And Mr. Mooney, overhearing fragments of this renewed enthusiasm, reacts with a mixture of disbelief and exhaustion, stepping in with firm authority to shut down any possibility of further experimentation, making it very clear that whatever Lucy thinks she accomplished is not something that needs to be repeated or expanded upon. And for a brief moment, Lucy seems to accept this, nodding along and adopting a more subdued tone, as if she has finally learned her lesson. But the calm is deceptive, because beneath that surface agreement, her mind is still active, still searching for the next opportunity to apply her insights. And this underlying tension adds a quiet layer of humor to the closing moments, as the audience can see what is coming even if the other characters are trying to believe otherwise. And sure enough, just as the episode appears ready to conclude, Lucy casually introduces a completely new idea, something unrelated on the surface but built on the same foundation of assumption and overconfidence, and the shift is almost instantaneous. Her energy returning, her voice gaining excitement, her posture changing as she leans into the possibility of another scheme, and Mr. Mooney's reaction is immediate and deeply familiar, cutting her off before she can even fully explain, while Mary Jane gives a knowing look that perfectly captures the inevitability of the cycle. And this final exchange serves as a perfect button for the episode, reinforcing the idea that in the Lucy show nothing is ever truly resolved, only temporarily contained, because Lucy's personality is not something that can be corrected or controlled. It is a constant force that will always find a new way to express itself, and that is exactly what makes the show work, as it embraces that repetition not as a flaw but as a feature, allowing each episode to explore a new variation of the same core dynamic while still feeling fresh and engaging. And by ending on that note of impending chaos, the episode leaves the audience with a sense of anticipation rather than closure, as if the story is continuing just beyond the frame, waiting to unfold in the next moment Lucy decides to act on her next brilliant idea, which if history is any indication, is definitely going to cause problems all over again.